YouTube, this video is going to be about hollow grinding, putting a hollow grind on a knife. So from the previous ones we've seen before that we made our initial blank. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the grind here. The first thing we want to do is kind of mark out where we want our cut line or our plunge line. And then the second thing I'm going to do, usually I'll do freehand hollow grinding. I'd like to start with a 45-degree angle on the actual edge on both sides, and then I'll pull the rest off, and I do that with a rest. So I'll take it, blade up, and I'll do a quick 45-degree grind. Then I'll pull the rest off, and I'll do the rest by hand, all by feel, and we'll kind of go by there. Note on hollow grinding, you know, they say a lot of times there's jigs and fixtures that really help. The truth is, you can feel what's going on with it a lot better than with a jig. A jig's going to force its way, and you can get consistent results. I haven't found any, but for me, once you get an initial 45 grind, I mean, if you're new at it, use a lighter belt. Don't go, you know, heavy on a fresh 36 grit belt, and don't do high speeds. But if you start with like a worn 80 grit and do medium speeds, you're not going to take metal off as fast, and you'll feel where it's at, and then you can make adjustments along the way before it's too late. So that's where we're going to start with that. All right, so we've got our plunge line marked. You'll see that here, and then on both sides you got it here and here. So the first thing we're going to do is go at it with a 45-degree angle. I just put the fresh belt on it. As kind of a side note, I use one of these belt cleaners. They're like a belt eraser, so it's like a glorified eraser. But they do take all the junk and the grit out of your belt and keep all the actual grit real fresh. So I definitely suggest using one of these as you go. Again, medium grit, just an 80 grit. So with the hollow grind, what you're going to do initially, I always go blade up, and then I just draw it back. And for this initial grind, just to get that initial edge, I'll just draw it back across, do the same on the other side. And then once I get that off, we'll talk about how I do it with hands here. So let's just get that started here. Alright, so you can see, I mean, you can barely see it. I don't even know if it'll focus in there, but it's just going to create that initial edge. Part of the reason you do that is going to be just because with fresh belts and a sharp edge, it can take a lot of that fresh grit off too. So especially if you start with this used belt, it really can save your grit and help your belts last longer. This is going to be an aluminum oxide cloth back belt. I get it from Knife Maker USA. They have really good deals. I also do, you'll see I start with these and I go with the aluminum oxide till about 120 grit, and then I move to their Norax. And the Norax are a lot more expensive. The aluminum oxide are actually only $2 or $3 a piece. The Norax are $7 to $9 a piece. But depending on the application, I'll do, if it's a satin finish, 165X is the finish, and then I'll put it on the buffer. If you want a mirror finish, I've got 100X, 65, 45, 16, and 5X. And with a 5X, it puts, you know, nearly a mirror finish on, and then it's just a few minutes on the buffer. But we'll be just doing the initial grind here, so don't worry about that. So when you're doing it, what I usually like to do, now some people have a piece of wood behind it they like to do even pressure. I like fingers because I just get a better feel for where I'm at. The other thing I do is I'm going to, you know, you favor the side of the belt, so I'm going to come at my plunge angle. Usually instead of a vertical angle, I'll probably come in like that. I think a line a little bit more diagonal looks prettier. I can always straighten it out later too. The other thing, it keeps the momentum. Now, key to hollow grinding, keep your elbows in and use your body to do the motion. If you're using your arms to do the motion, you get a lot more variance up and down, in and out, and then pressure. But with your fingers and your body making that motion, it keeps it real consistent. The other thing I do, instead of pushing on the blade on the back, I usually will use my top finger and I rest it, and then I use my thumb to do any of the pushing, and that keeps a real consistent grip too. As you come across, you're going to want to come down, and you don't want to come straight and drag it across. You're going to want to come with the blade angle and bring it around, and that's going to create your pretty line. And I'll show you how that works too. And again, about medium speed on this one. So as you can see, you're already getting a real consistent grind on that knife. So you're getting it all the way back up across. And then if you feel like, you'll notice just right here on the actual grind itself, it's going to be a little bit thinner up top than it is down at the bottom. Don't worry about that too much. You can adjust for that. And as you see that, just angle a little bit more down. In terms of the angle, don't keep it at that initial 45-degree angle. I watched, I forget who the author was, a knife making video, and I really appreciated his advice. Instead of matching that angle, he keeps it at an angle such where he can just barely see a line or any light from the tip of the blade to the belt. And so it's a little more vertical of an angle, but that's going to help you get a real deep hollow grind cut that's not going to be so intense and so short. I'm a fan of the look of a big, thick hollow grind, which requires a little bit more of a vertical application. So we'll get back started here. Right, so now you can see the difference in the actual grind itself now. So from the bottom to the very top, you can have a lot more consistent, much deeper grind, so it's still hot there, but deeper grind all the way across as it comes up to the tip. We're about ready. I've already scribed the lines in the bottom, and that's one part that I failed to mention, is that you scribe center lines so that way you know how deep to grind on the bottom, and it also keeps a real consistent edge coming, so that way you don't have any waves left and right. So it's going to, that's real hot. So you're going to keep some real consistent lines on the bottom there of the knife. You can't really see them. It's not the best quality video, I apologize. But now we'll start on the other side. Alright, so here's our finished product. Got a good, as you can see, you've got a good grind on this side. Got the other side as well. Got a good grind all the way up. Yeah, so pretty even all the way up. Just moving using that one motion, that, both ways. For me, it honestly took a little bit longer to learn left-handed. It wasn't as natural for me as it was right. So I ended up coming down with a little bit less, material and things. But that's basically what it is. So this was our 80 grit belt. What I'll do is I'll go back over it with the 220, and then, the 120, send it out for heat treat, and then once it comes back, go through the rest.